How are you? You know, scientists say that the quality of sleep you get, including your deep sleep, is as equally as important as food and water to you. Hi, I'm Trish Gleason, and today we have Dr. Patrick Porter with us. Hi, Dr. Porter, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Good. Well, today he's going to talk about insomnia and many other areas that we need some help on. So let me introduce Dr. Porter. He's an expert in biohacking and neuro-linguistic programming. And yes, he'll explain that a little later. He's an entrepreneur, an award-winning author, world-renowned lecturer, and he lectures to hundreds of thousands of people, mainly doctors worldwide every year. He's been a researcher and inventor for, I guess, probably much over 35 years. And his focus is on how the brain works. He's also a leading authority in the world on sleep, how to tap into your brain and really understand sleep. And he uses light, sound, and frequency to achieve these goals. So anyway, he does have a technology that he's created that's also worldwide, and it's called BrainTap. So we'll learn a little bit about that later. So doctor, welcome.
Thank you.
Good. So we've got lots of questions, and we'd like to go ahead and start by, I guess one of them would be, they say we sleep a third of our lives. Is that true?
Well, for most people, they're in bed at least a third of their life. They're not really sleeping. There's a misconception about time spent in bed. It's really about REM sleep and deep sleep, as you kind of alluded to at the very beginning. That's what's most important, not how much time you spend in bed. But yeah, most people would like to spend 8 hours of deep sleep or at least have being in bed and going through the cycles of sleep at that point.
Okay, so are there, somewhere I read that there's different stages of sleep.
Yeah, we have light sleep, which a lot of people never reach any deeper than that. REM is where you have the rapid eye movement, and it's also where you start to remember dreams. Everyone dreams, it's just some people don't recall them. One thing that might be shocking for most of your listeners out there is that the average dream lasts 7 seconds. So when you think about that, because when you're in the dream state, you're in a timeless place in the mind. You know, when Einstein said, when you're around a beautiful woman for an hour, it seems like a minute. And when you're sitting on a stove for a minute, it seems like an hour. It's because it really is relevant in what we're doing. So there's also deep sleep, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but deep sleep is the most important for brain health and for really recharging your body and getting your brain to work efficiently during the next day. If you don't reach that deep sleep and the REM sleep, those are the two that are most important, but most of your devices will measure up to 4 different levels of sleep.
Oh, so what happens when we sleep deep? Is that when our brain like solves problems we had throughout the day, or is it that technical?
Well, there is more technical than that, but that's probably what it does, but nobody really knows, because when you're in deep sleep, which they call delta sleep, there's no awareness. So it's like if you've ever fallen asleep on the couch and family members have tried to wake you up and they said, oh, you were dead to the world, you were probably in that deep delta state. But the key to that, in 2016, in the May issue of American Scientific, they actually came out with a report that showed that the most important state of sleep is deep sleep, because that's when the brain actually cleans itself. And if we don't clean our brain, there's something called thoughts, traumas, and toxins, right? So if those are the things that cause all the problems in our physical world. So if we don't clear out the toxins in our brain, which is just the daily grind of what we do day in and day out, our brain is going to throw off a lot of different toxins just in cellular regeneration, neurogenesis, and all the things the brain does. But just like the brain has a blood-brain barrier, it also has a lymphatic barrier, which means the lymphatic system, which is that part of our body that's kind of like the garbage man of the system. So, or garbage woman, however you want to look at that. And it cleans the body. That part of the brain actually stays closed until you reach level 4 sleep. Now, some of your listeners might have actually woke up during one of these sleep cycles, because you'll experience it as sleep paralysis. So if you've ever woke up and had sleep paralysis, you probably woke up consciously in one of those deep cleaning cycles, but you're locked out of your nervous system. So that means you can't move. And that should happen anywhere between 6 to 8 times every night, but it only happens in micro bursts so that the brain can detox.
Okay, wow. You know, I read somewhere that back in the 50s, scientists thought that our brains did this when we went to sleep. They said we drifted, shut down, and we were passive, that our brain didn't do anything during our sleep. Back as early as the 50s, which wasn't that long ago.
Right,
So it's
right,
amazing what you've uncovered, and you're part of our discovery
right.
for our brains here in the world.
That's right. The key is the brain never shuts down. It's a 100 billion neural bit processor that's always thinking, doing, and responding. We have 75 trillion cells that make up our body. And our brain, which is the central operating system, if you will, kind of like your, if you're using DOS or IBM or Windows or Mac OS, that's what runs our operating system. So it's our microprocessor. So think of brain speed like microprocessor speed. We all want to have faster RAM, faster processing speed. And it seems that our brain, as we unfortunately get better looking and more intelligent with age, it tends to slow down. And what science has shown that actually it does, the hemispheres slow down differently. And that's what causes, or at least they are presupposing that that's what's causing a lot of the dementia issues and also ADHD, because if the brains aren't communicating these two hemispheres, then there can be a lot of miscommunication. When we sleep, the brain is synchronizing short-term memories into long-term resources, and it's actually deciding what we want to remember and what we want to forget. So, and it does that based on our belief system and our life experience. So some people hold on to anger, resentment, negative emotions. They go to sleep with those and they dream about those. They wake up angry. Of course, that's not very healthy. So, but some people do that. So, but the people that have the short-term memories, as far as holding grudges or having negativity or anger, resentment, those kind of things, just basically, that's why forgiveness is so important, and having gratitude when you wake up. Those are all positive emotions. If you can think in terms of, one of the keys for a deep sleep is, before you go to sleep, clear out your day. You know, honor those positive memories you have. Really take a moment to relive them, cherish them. Just like somebody who's in a sporting event that had a victory, you want to hold on to that for a little bit. You don't want to dwell on it too much, but you just want to basically recall it, relive it, let that be there. And anything that happened negatively, then you want to learn to forgive, forget, and move on. Hopefully learn from those experiences, and you'll find your sleep will be much deeper.
So, wow, that's a lot, but it was all amazing information. So let me recap. So if you don't sleep enough or deep enough, your two hemispheres don't connect and regroup, and that possibly could cause lots of problems, right?
Right. Well, there's a synchronization that happens. They would say that one hemisphere handles the logical side of our nature, the other handles our emotional side of our nature. And these two are almost always at a battle until we make peace within ourselves. That's why there's always this, we've got to make peace with ourselves. When they are communicating efficiently, then it seems to happen seamlessly. Although there is some, it's basically the speed of electrons, moving across our brain through the corpus callosum. But it's very fast. But even if it's off just a fraction of a second, we can't communicate with either hemisphere. Then we don't have memories. When you think a thought, one thing, Trish, when you think something, it's not just one place in your brain it goes to. No less than 5 areas of the brain light up with any given thought. So if there's brain damage, you've hurt one side of the brain or the other side of the brain, or you're not sleeping well, the brain is fatigued, inflammation. That's the main thing that happens if you don't sleep well, is inflammation in the brain. And so we want to cool that inflammation, just like your motor on your car. A lot of people get headaches and then they take an aspirin. Well, that's kind of like putting a black tape over your car's light that says, hey, check the engine. You want to check the engine, which is your brain. And really what it's telling you is it's time to reboot. It's time to do something to cool the inflammation in the brain, to get the brain, in the best way I know is meditation, through light, sound, and vibration.
Well, it's amazing, all these discoveries that you're telling us about, because we didn't know most of this. And spread it. We appreciate you being interviewed to help spread the word and give us some solutions. So it sounds like to me like you've pretty much found some solutions to people that have possibly dementia, but you've also found some things for people that have anxiety and depression, because so many people do. Does it help? One of the main thing we're talking about today is insomnia, and we have another event for weight loss, but just because, weight loss is really important to all the people as well. You can discover things in your brain and tell yourself secrets about weight loss, and it'll help you.
Well, the way the brain works, the brain's a servo mechanism, meaning goal striving. So you're always giving it a goal. You either give it a goal or it goes to default mode. So a default mode is just letting your habits and patterns kind of rule you. There's a thing out there, it's called long-term thinking. And a lot of people don't have this. Immediate gratification is really one of the problems we have in our world today. People want it, they want it now. Used to be, if you could go back into the old TV episodes of like I Love Lucy, for instance, and you watch them eating lunch, they will always have a half a sandwich and a small tumbler of soda. Now, if we were served that in a restaurant in America, we would be screaming and yelling, saying, hey, where's the beef? Where's my big thing of soda? Where's, everybody, because everything's gotten bigger and fatter, and they've actually, the manufacturing of addiction is gone off the charts. The same people that make our cigarettes, unfortunately, Reynolds, who did all the research into what makes cigarettes so addictive, and it's sugar, it's not nicotine, and all the other things that make a cigarette addictive, Kraft food bought. So I always tell people never eat foods made by elves, because they have magical ingredients in there called excitotoxins. Those will have your brain craving things even though you didn't know you wanted them. There's a reason that you just can't eat one of them, right? They've manufactured them that way. It's not a coincidence. They've done a lot of research. They figured out what, and they know that the fat, the sugar, they just load it up in our brain, which is 66 to 67% fat. It craves fat, but it gets tricked by eating the bad fats. It thinks that's the good fats. But then when it gets into the system, it says, hey, that's not good. It's kind of like you think you're on the let's say the US Canadian border, and you think you got change, and then you look down, you got all Canadian coins. It's not the same thing. You can't spend them the same way. And the same thing's true with the body. The big key with sleep and weight loss is if you're not sleeping well, I can guarantee you there's a couple things that are happening. Number one, you're not releasing melatonin. Melatonin only gets released typically between 1 and 3 o'clock in night. And melatonin is the brain cleaner, but it also helps to intensify or increase metabolism. So your nervous system, a lot of people think of the nervous system, they think of the spine, they think of the arms, the legs, but 70% of your nervous system is in your brain, not in your body. So that means when you get the brain working right, sleeping well, your weight will be reduced, your brain function will be improved, you'll have clarity of thought. If you have brain fog, that's a good sign that you're not getting level 4 sleep because the toxins are building up. If you're getting headaches, it could be that you're not detoxifying. Of course, there's a lot of other things that could be happening, but the easiest thing you can do is start to or learn methods. Let me give one of your listeners a method too to go to sleep without buying anything. When they're in bed at night, right before they go to sleep, not only are they going to review their day without emotion, that's what they call mindfulness. You just let your mind be full of it, judge it, just let it go. It's kind of like watching a leaf fall from a tree. You can't control it, you just let it fall, but you're watching it. Let your day kind of play by, and then reflect on your body. When you reflect on your body, if you're holding tension in any area of your body acts like a capacitor. Now, a capacitor, an electronic system, it holds a charge, and then that charge discharges somewhere. So if you think about it for a minute, if you have a charge throughout the day, you're angry, you're upset, all negative emotions have one thing in common. They don't have flow, right? You're holding your breath, you get upset, you get angry, all this energy builds up, but you don't know where to go with it. So then you go get a pizza, you go get a soda, you go get a cigarette, you go get a drug, whatever it is. We want you to go to get something healthy, because really what your body's telling you, it's time to discharge. So we either discharge in a healthy way or we find negative ways to discharge, but our body has to discharge or it burns up. Mm-hmm. And so sleep is the time to do that. It's a way to unwind. So consciously go to sleep. If you're the type of person that hits the pillow and goes directly to sleep, you're probably not sleeping as well as you could. because you have to unwind. Think of your body like a coil that's wound so tight, and then you go to sleep and it's still wound tight, but you're sleeping. Then you wake up in the morning, it's still tight. Unwind a little bit, do some breathing. And the way you breathe before you go to sleep is very simple. It's a simple breath technique. You simply breathe in and you breathe out twice as long as you breathe out. And if you practice that and then just reflect on your body, think of your body like a pond, and you're going to get rid of all the tension in the body. By the time you reach the top of your head, most people are sound asleep then, and they've done the right thing. They've discharged. And pretty soon what will happen is that will become a habit. Sleeping well will become a habit instead of sleeping poorly becomes a habit for some people. And of course, you want to do things like not drink a 6-pack or something like that before you go to bed and things like that. I mean, if you're going to drink alcohol, you should do that a couple hours before you go to sleep so your body can metabolize it, because your body won't sleep if you have alcohol in the system. It has to clear that out, because your body should only have 1 tablespoon of sugar in the bloodstream at any one time. So let's say you have a glass of wine, you just dumped another couple, probably 5 tablespoons of sugar in. So the body's got to metabolize that or you're in trouble. So it's going to stay awake. Even though your brain's asleep, your body's awake. So that's why sometimes you go to sleep after a night out and you feel like, hey, it feels like I just ran a mile. But I just woke up. It's because the body was still awake while your brain was asleep.
So we should stop eating how many hours before we plan to go to sleep?
Optimum 4 hours. But most, if you can do that, I mean, I was just in India, unfortunately, and they don't eat till 10 o'clock at night. It's the craziest thing. And I'm used to eating around 6, 6 or 7 o'clock. So it was crazy. And a couple of people that were with us on the trip go, when are we going to eat? I go, they're going to eat. And then they go to sleep, which is really bizarre. I mean, it's like, you should have some time there to digest. But when you're at the mercy of other people, and I know right now while we're filming this, it's the holidays. So we get to go have grandma's favorite whatever, or some family member's favorite dish or something from the family recipe that we wouldn't eat normally. This is the time of the year where we have a lot of excuses, but we have to keep we have to do that, everything in moderation is what's best.
Absolutely. So you told us a couple little tricks on how we can get to sleep, and because our ultimate goal for myself, and I'm sure everybody listening or watching, is to get into delta sleep, because that's the good thing, right? So we know that you can calm down. Is that a ritual? Like have a ritual every night? Does that help?
Yes. If you're finding that if you're not sleeping well, you need to shake up that ritual. Whatever you're doing. I mean, one thing that a lot of people find useful is they don't watch TV. They don't use a reader, maybe a Kindle reader that uses the white paper, something like that. Don't look at your screen right before go to bed. The unfortunate truth is that they did a study and people will look at their social media before they even go to the bathroom. So it trumps even bodily function. So, I mean, if we can just do those things and kind of do we have at our house, usually after 8 o'clock at night, unless I'm doing something on the West Coast that causes me to be awake, all of our digital stuff is put away. Just because we might watch a movie or something at night, but we're not on our phones constantly. We're not on our computers, anything that could bring you stress. And by all means, don't watch the news right before you go to bed. The worst thing you can do for your nervous system right before you go, if you're going to watch the news, you should watch that early and get over it. I don't recommend watching the news. I recommend getting the bite-sized morsels, and then, don't just, because they bombard you with a bunch of negativity that you can't do anything about.
Right. So what about the temperature of your room? Does that make a difference?
Well, they say that the cooler your room is, the better. For us, we do that and it works really well. You have to find out what works. Everyone is a kind of a universe of one, but I would say that most people, they like to be comfortable. Darkness is always best. The darker the room, the better. You want to get the body, and part of that is because our body is tuned to the light of our sun. There's a reason people love sunrises and sunsets. It's because it actually, what used to happen when we were hunters and gatherers is that time, there's 3 things that happen during the sunrise and sunset. Number 1, we get infrared radiation from the sun, which actually they now know heals the brain. But there's also red and blue light in the morning that actually they now know resets the gut-brain axis. So you can reset your gut biome. If you don't get, if there's lights on in your room and that light is stimulating you, especially fluorescent lights and things like that, your brain never produces the right neurochemicals because it's trying to tune into the light source. Our bodies don't know we have these artificial lights. It thinks all the light is from the sun, but the lux from the sun, let's say, is 100 times more bright than the room light. And so we're really all suffering from light deficiency. You know, we need the right light to really feed our bodies and to get our nervous system and our neuro system working as well as our glandular system.
And is it true that the light, because I see that light's a very big part of our lives and sleeping, and it's a very important, but is the thick light that we have in our house confusing our body?
Yes, a lot of them are, especially a lot of the LED lights, because they're actually flickering at a certain frequency. They're not just on.
Oh.
They actually have a frequency response. So if you look at full spectrum light, that's what you want to find. There are full spectrum light sources that they have. If you see something that's approved by John Ott, John Ott, OTT, he actually has the Ott light generator for those people thinking that they're suffering from light deprivation, which is like they're not in a sunny environment. You can actually put them next to your computer screen and you get fed good light. It's like a light panel that you can have. You know, what we really need is light in our home that changes with the light from the sun so that we get the right frequencies at the right time, because it's telling when somebody says they have jet lag, what they're really saying is the light from the sun is telling my body to do something that my body doesn't understand, because we just went through 2 or 3 time zones.
So it didn't
get the right dosing.
Right. That'd be neat. That'd be neat if the airlines could have that controlled inside the cabin. Mm-hmm. Delta needs to talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about sleeping and the longevity of life, our mortality. Right. How does that work out? Do we get to live longer and sleep better?
Yeah, well, there's a saying, burning the candle at both ends. If you don't sleep and recharge, and just to put it into perspective, when we deal with, if people go online and they just put hashtag BrainTap, they're going to see a lot of professional boxers and MMA fighters and UFC fighters using BrainTap. And the reason that we do that, and with also Olympic athletes, it's because they need recovery. Recovery is just as important as going out there and going after all your goals. Because if you don't recover, if your body doesn't mend itself, our body is designed to go hard and recover, go hard and recover. So many people go all the time, but they never really recover. And sleep is that time for recovery and rebuilding our body. And it's really meant for cycles of sleep, not any one cycle. So to give you an example, if you don't have the neurotransmitters you need, for instance, while we're speaking here, hopefully you're in beta, which is dopamine. There's no problem. Most people have an overdose of dopamine, and that's really what's responsible for most addictions. But when you get into alpha, your brain literally tells the gut to produce acetylcholine. That's why when you find a hobby you love, or people you love being around, or watching sunrises, sunsets, ocean waves, these are all tuned to alpha. And so the brain starts to create acetylcholine, which is one of those feel-good neurochemicals that you have when you're in love. But we produce it all the time. If we don't experience theta, which happens to be like a mountaintop experience because mountains resonate at 7.8 hertz frequency, but when we go through that cycle, our brain again instructs our gut, because 95 to 98% of all neurotransmitters are made in our gut, not in our brain, because we have a brain-gut axis. We have more neuron connections in our gut than we do in our brain and our head. So there's all this information here. Also, the listeners might not know this, but you have 40,000 neurocells in your heart. That's not a lot, but those neurocells actually instruct the brain. So they actually, that your heart communicates twice as much to the brain as the brain does to the heart. So that's why people, when they say, follow your heart, do what you love, and all these things. And so when you're going through these different stages of sleep, especially alpha and theta, which are the two that are really hurting if you don't sleep well, what happens is you don't have these neurotransmitters, which now means your body's got to go rob Peter to pay Paul. It's got to go in and dip into your reserves. So most people there's a saying, don't write checks your body can't cash, you know, and so a lot of people continue to borrow against the future, borrow against the future, borrow against the future, and they're not able to make good decisions. They're not able to act right, because if you don't have the right amount, these neurotransmitters are made daily. They're not made a month from now and then used a week from now. They're made today for today. So our body is designed like a river, where they say that if you step into a river 365 days, you're stepping into a new river every time, because the river's flowing. The same thing is true with your body. Your body is different today than it will be tomorrow. In fact, at a rate of about 50 million cells per second, your body is changing. Within 2 years, there's a totally new you. No one listening to this conversation is older than 2 years physically, but we have the mental capacity of whatever age we were born. So we carry those memories with us. Now, if we're eating healthy, we're sleeping well, we're exercising, we're doing all the things we know to be right, then we take the good and we bring it with us. Now, if we're doing all the bad stuff, guess what? We bring all that with us too. We get to bring the baggage with us, whether it's good or bad. So we want to clear out the negative baggage, because we don't really need that. And we want to carry forward the positive information, and that will help us sleep better.
So if our gut is so powerful, because the heart, the gut, the brain's all together, probiotics, that's the only way I know to help my gut get a little better. I mean, eat right.
There's pre, pro, and there's all these different fermented foods. I mean, they're starting this connection. The biggest reason people miss work is irritable bowel syndrome. And it's not a digestive problem. It's a thinking problem. That's why everywhere else, except for America, they send them to a relaxologist, somebody who's going to teach them how to relax their gut, because it's a brain problem and they need to learn to relax their gut. It's not about the food they ate last night. That could be a part of the problem, but the reality is that our gut is out because our gut is trying to do what our brain's talking about, you know, telling us to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow, think that might be a good interview for another time, because I know that is important. So many people have problems with their stomach. Mm-hmm. So, question, in your many, many years, how many years is it exactly you've been working with the brain? I said 30, 35.
Right.
You look pretty young, so maybe I said too many.
Yeah, I've been in business since 1987 myself, but I actually recorded my first cassette tape at 12 years old when cassettes first came out, so that'll kind of date me there. But my dad was a seminar leader in a group called the Silva Method. So I've been doing this really since I was a teenager.
I know you wrote a book. Tell us about your book, just because I'd like to know, and I know everybody else would too. If you have a copy there, it'd be great.
I don't have a copy with it that I can reach, because I'm actually at home today, not at the office. But I've written 9 books and co-authored 20 more. But the book that we're most proud of right now is called Thrive and Overdrive, and it's all about, we live in a lifestyle right now that everybody gets up, hits the ground running, busy, 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 and they don't understand that we need to have that downtime. So Thrive and Overdrive shows you how you can thrive and you can move in overdrive, but you just got to take this time out for yourself. And it talks about the science of sleep in the book. And it also talks about, you know, how did we get here? Technology brought us here. So technology will also help us out of here. And that's why we're considered like biohackers, although I've been doing it since the 80s. But in biohacking, David Asprey just kind of coined the term here a number of years ago. But the reality is that we're kind of shortcutting what nature does anyway, and we're using technology to do that. We talk about that in the book.
It's echoing, so I have to get that off there somehow. And let me try and figure that out.
Okay.
Hang on.
It sounds good on this end. I don't
know. Sounds good though. It's going to echo the whole time unless I can figure that out. Oh, terrible. Well, as soon as you start talking, it won't.
Okay. Well,
anyway, let me go ahead with some questions.
Sounds fine here. So.
Okay, good then. So talk to us about neuro-linguistic programming. What is that?
Okay. Well, back in the 80s, actually, when I first started, John Grinder and Richard Bandler came up with a terminology called neuro-linguistic programming. So if you think about our neurology, how our nervous system works and functions, they found out that language actually instructs the nervous system. For instance, if I ask you to think of one of your favorite memories, your nervous system is going to go to work to go find a memory to make that happen. They call that representational systems. So there's a whole lot that goes into it, but what they did, part of neurolinguistic programming is just how does language affect our nervous system? And then they also studied excellence, which means they took people who were doing things really well and they figured out, what are they thinking? What are they doing? How are they expressing themselves? And once you find that out, they call it modeling, then you can teach other people to do it just as well, or maybe even better. And people who know Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins, he calls it NAC now, neuro-associative conditioning. But the reality is that's only because he was sued by Richard Bandler and he was told he couldn't use the term anymore. But now anybody can use the term because they let the cat out of the bag and everybody's using it. But he wrote his book, Awaken the Giant, and basically took all of Richard Bandler's stuff. So he got a little bit, he got his hand slapped and they became buddies afterwards. But the reality is that probably Tony Robbins has made it more famous than anybody else because he's such a great presenter, you know, in sharing the information.
Wow. So both that goes hand in hand with biohacking?
Right. Well, what happens now, they know, we didn't know this a long time ago. And of course, people in therapies didn't know this either, but we now know because of something called epigenetics that we can change up to 1,200 gene expressions just by the language we use. When you're using visualization, relaxation techniques, you can literally alter the way somebody's chemistry works, their biochemistry works. And there's a great book by Bruce Lipton called Biology of Belief that kind of explains this. And he's been doing this for almost 50 years. So before anybody was thinking about, everybody thought, hey, we're born with these genes, mom and dad gave us. Now they're showing, and they've proven this in science, that only 20% of your gene expression is from mom and dad. The other 80% is from the food you eat, the beverages you drink, the thoughts you think, the people you hang around, all of these social reasons, these social interactions. Our body is always adapting. Like I said, our body's like a river. It changes based on the environment. So now, just because you have a propensity for something, let's say you have a propensity for addiction, doesn't mean you have to turn on that gene expression. You can do things that they just never turns on. Where another person, it just turns on, and they have a problem with it. So they don't know how to turn these genes on and off, but they do know that language can alter that. They've done studies that Deepak Chopra was part of, one where they actually took people who had addiction and they measured their gene expression for addiction. After 30 days, the group that they were doing visualization relaxation techniques with actually changed 300 gene expressions during that 30 days. The others that were in the same treatment, they just didn't get the visualization relaxation part, had no changes in those gene expressions. So it wasn't the other things, it was the actual guided imagery, visualization, relaxation techniques that were doing the changing. And that's because once we learn to relax our body knows how to heal itself, something they call innate intelligence. Just like when we're kids, we fall down, we skin our knee or our elbow, our mom says, oh, it's going to heal up, and she kisses it or whatever. We forget about it. 2 weeks later, we forgot totally about it. It scabbed over, it healed, and we don't even think about it. The body knows what to do if we get out of the way and let it heal.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about your technology, your creation called BrainTap. I personally know a lot of doctors worldwide, and most of them use your technology. Can you explain to us how the light and sound and everything works? I'd love to hear more about it.
Right. So this is where the biohacking part comes in, because the light from the sun is not a constant light. The light from the sun is actually pulsating. That's why they have stars. They call them pulse stars, right? They pulse in the sky. Our sun is actually pulsating. We just don't see it because we're so close. It's kind of like watching a movie at 30 frames per second. We don't see the different frames. It becomes continuous. So that flickering light actually affects our nervous system. So we're going to use the eyes. We're going to put light into the eyes. There's two reasons for that. One is to change brain speed, to get the brain to slow down, to get into these alpha and theta states so the body can heal or create what's called hypermnesia, super memory. Whatever the reason is, we have over 1,000 sessions designed to do different things. But the light is key because it also keeps the frontal lobe, this part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain, active. Most people confuse meditation with sleep. It's not about sleeping. And so, not that this is exactly meditation, but it basically surpasses meditation. You don't have to learn anything. You simply close your eyes. So through closed eyelids, the optic nerve number 2, cranial nerve number 2, excuse me, will notice the flickering light, a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. This is the part of our brain that's always looking around to make sure we're safe, says, hey, there's flashing light over here. What's going on? There's flashing light over here. What's going on? And the brain starts to synchronize to that light. Now we're doing the same thing with the ears. We're putting light into the ears. Now, some people say, why light in the ears?
Right.
Why light in the eyes? Well, your eyes actually control 30% of your hearing. So your listeners, you heard me right. 30% of your hearing comes in through your eyes. That's part of our primitive brain. That's why when we're walking through the forest, where we're looking is what we're seeing. And we're in a restaurant where we're looking at somebody, we're talking, we're having a conversation. We forget about all the other conversations until somebody says something like world wellness or something. Then our brain goes, whoo, I know that term. Then that reticular activator kicks on.
Yeah.
And also, if you've ever been in a lecture and you couldn't hear the lecture, but then you adjusted your sight until you could see the speaker, then you could hear them. That's part of this process. So we keep that part of the brain awake, because if you close your eyes and listen to something, you've shut down actually 30 to 40% of your brain's potential just by closing your eyes, because the brain thinks it's time for sleep. So we want to trick the brain. That's the hacking part of it. We're biohacking. Now, the light through the ears is really important because we need to get photons into the body through the eyes and through the ears, because the next place it goes is into the brain, because the eyes aren't just attached to the brain. The eyes are your brain. So when you think of your eyes, you're actually looking at brain matter. It just took the shape and form of your eyes. So when somebody says, wow, you've got beautiful eyes, they're really telling you, hey, you've got a beautiful brain, because they're seeing your brain there. That's why people like iridologists can tell you all about your body through your eyes.
Right.
But what we're doing is the body absorbs photons, especially those that are 470 nanometer light and 633 nanometer light. These are healing light frequencies. There's another one, 810, but we don't use that one just because we use it in other ways at BrainTap, but not for the headset. We do it for healing the brain. But those two light frequencies, the hemoglobin absorb them. Now they circulate through the body. In first place, it goes into the brain. When it finds a cell that's about to die, in science they call it apoptosis. When that cell's about to die, the cell magnetically attracts that photon. It goes in and creates, again, mitochondria health. The instruction set of that cell kicks back on. The Krebs cycle starts up again. That cell comes back to life because it needed light. It needed energy, and it creates something called ATP. And for those scientists out there, that's what our body needs. Think of it like currency in the body. If you don't have ATP, you can't heal the body. You can't rejuvenate the body. You can't rebuild the body. So ATP is what we need. So the energy of the cell is rebuilt at a cellular level through light. Now we're using sound along with it, because the sound, when it comes through the ears, there's a couple different sound frequencies. I'm just going to mention one for the listeners, but we want to create the balance. So we're going to put a 300 hertz frequency in one ear, a 310 in the other. Those aren't the exact ones we use, but they're something like that. Our brain will only hear the 10 hertz frequency. Now we have an algorithm that shows if we change that at a certain rate and a certain speed, the brain will follow it. They call this frequency following response. It's actually a science. Our body does it all the time. If we go to the ocean, we're sitting down by the ocean, our body will start to sync with the waves. We start to slip into alpha. If we go to a mountaintop, we'll start to slip into theta, which is 7.8 hertz frequency, because that's the resonant frequency of the earth. They call this a Schumann frequency. So we have this frequency that's always happening. Everything in the universe, every physical thing you can see is vibrating. We just don't see it vibrate because it's happening so fast. We think it's solid, but it's really vibrating. And so that vibratory frequency, we either bond to and we like, or we don't like it. That's why when you see something you like, you resonate with it, right? People say that all the time, I resonate with that. Well, what they're saying is their vibratory frequency likes it and that frequency likes, but there's other things you don't like. You go, I don't resonate with that. I don't like that. And that repels me. So we're doing these things all the time. we're using light, sound, and vibration to train the brain to go back to its natural state of being. The natural state is to sleep deeply, rest comfortably, wake up rejuvenated as your best self, and basically clear out the negative memories. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but that's the way that it works. And everything is systematized. So it's not one size fits all. That's why I have 1,000 different sessions. We did for the people for sleeping, one of the first things we do when we work with PTSD is we have to get those soldiers or the people who've experienced the trauma back sleeping. Because when you have a traumatic event happen, you get locked into a cybernetic loop or a beta loop, which means that fear, that frustration, which only happens in the awakened state, is keeping you or preventing you from going into the deep states you need to rest, recharge, and rejuvenate. Because when you do that, you're going to forget about those things. And if you got a charge on them, like, I'm so angry, I got to get even with that person, or I can't believe that happened, or whatever the emotional charge is, we need to discharge that so we can let it go and then have our deep sleep that we need and awaken rejuvenated.
Right. Wow, I have a lot of questions, but I don't know if the time permits, but let me explain to everybody just so they're clear, because I know a little bit more than the average person about BrainTap because I've tried it. So you put on this headset at night and it puts light and sound in it has light and sound, and it usually lasts up to maybe 20 minutes, 10 or 20 minutes. And there's lots of modules that they have to help overcome whatever the issue is. Can you give us a list of some of those things that they can overcome or correct? I guess it's correcting.
In the morning. You can listen in the morning, midday, or evening. So it depends on what you're trying to do. But let's say that you want to, we have ones for weight loss. We have over 200 sessions just for weight loss. For instance, we have some that like change diet saboteurs into diet supporters. We have the being assertive through weight loss and things like that, being able to say yes when it's appropriate, no when it's appropriate. We have and they're all dependent on what you want to learn, the lesson. We have stop smoking, we have stress reduction, we have mind over menopause for the women. If somebody's going to be giving birth, we have stress-free childbirth. We have stress-free dentistry. We have the PTSD program for military and for civilians. We have a grieving program that we work with. I just finished up one for football with Art Still, who's a professional football player for Kansas City Chiefs. We do series to even help salespeople like who have their own independent business, like these independent salespeople that do home businesses. We have a program for that called Entrepreneur Breakthrough Academy. Because everything, if you think about it, everything is a mind game. If your mind's not in it, if you're not mindful, if your brain's not in the game, you're probably not going to do very well. So we need to get the brain tuned so your life can tune and you can start to, sing the chorus instead of being a backup singer.
Train our brains to do what we want the right way.
Right.
Really, that's it.
That's right.
The future is here, and we appreciate it from you, Doctor. I have more questions, though you're not leaving quite yet.
Okay.
Okay, so when I'm thinking about it, you talk about this ATP and how important it is that our bodies cannot heal without ATP, right?
Right.
How do we get ATP? Because that sounded like something I want.
Well, we get it from light naturally. That's what we convert all of our food. Our food converts into that at some point. They say that, food is just solidified light. So, you can get it first from light. That's one way to get it. What if you put an ATP even in YouTube or something, you'll see all the diagrams and how important it is. But when light enters into the system, it does a few things. It creates vasodilation, which means the capillaries, the microcirculation in the body increases, opens up because of nitric oxide. Mm-hmm. This opens up the blood vessels, causes blood to flow in, and starts to build these pathways. Now, these carry with them the nutrients from the food you're eating. The ATP is a byproduct of that. So in order to build, we need energy. So the body, in the infinite wisdom of our creator, has said, okay, if it's there building, we need the ATP there. So it's kind of like we need energy in our tank to drive across town. The body does that at a cellular level. So this ATP is produced, and the thing is, there's a lot of precursors to it, like light is a precursor to it. There's also some supplementation that does it or makes claims on that. I don't know offhand which ones do and which ones don't. I'm not a nutritional expert, but I know that if you eat more greens, fresh alive foods, like there's some things called energy bits I travel with. They're little green spirulinas and things like that. And I also have an energy drink that I do. It's called from a company called Get Off Your Acid, which is because if your body's acidic, you're not producing ATP. So I get up in the morning and I have my green drink. That's the first thing I do. And you know, I think that product, that would be a good person for you to interview. I should put you in touch with Dr. Dr. Darrell. He's great. And he actually has, when you go to BrainTap and on social media, all the Victoria's Secret models that are using BrainTap, they were probably introduced by him because he's like a celebrity nutritionist. He's been on the morning shows all the time. And he became a friend of ours when he started using BrainTap at his office. So
great. Well, we'd love it if you'd arrange that.
Yeah.
So does your technology help people with autism, other disability, let's not call that, other challenges?
Right. We have Joquita Handy, who's one of our doctors out in Orange County, California, started working with the autistic community without us even knowing. We don't, when the brain functions right, but what we found was that autistic, when somebody's on the spectrum, they call it, what we found a correlation with what we do is that they don't have alpha brainwave activity. So we created a series that focuses, it's a 10-minute series that focuses on building alpha. And a few of our different studies show that we can increase alpha by over 20%, 20 to 25% in 30 days, just by these kids putting it on. Now, the schools that use it, and we're in several schools now, they call it brain prep. So, because think of an autistic child that when they're stimming, you've probably seen them where they're shaking and quaking and they have so much energy, they don't know what to do with it. They're in high beta. Now, that same person, maybe an hour later, is disassociated and they're disconnected. That's why Robert Melillo wrote the book Disassociated Kids, is now they're in high theta. They're totally, because the brainwaves don't work digitally. You can't just jump from beta to theta and function right. You should move through the alpha frequency, but they don't have alpha. When we do a brain scan or a QEEG scan, which is, we put the electronic leads, there's a difference between measuring the heart and the brain. The brain is electrical stimulus, the heart is magnetic. So we can do that remotely almost. There's actual ways you can even do it from 18 feet away. But the brain, you have to put these attachments on the head and these probes, and we can measure brainwave activity, and they simply don't have enough alpha to process. Once we teach them, we have story after story of nonverbal kids speaking after even just one session. Because think of it like every brainwave is like a Wi-Fi network. And you have devices that hook up to that network, like our cells, our systems, our organs of our body. If that frequency isn't broadcasting in our body, those systems are shut down. But once we reactivate that part of the system, and everybody has it, and the reason they don't have it is thoughts, traumas, or toxins, something's going on. Usually it's not the thoughts, because a lot of time it happened at birth, so they didn't have the thinking capacity. But once we repair the damage, which is done through light, and then we start to train them through frequency response, the brain is able to come back. And we've had really good results working with doctors. It's not just BrainTap though. I have to tell people that it's not just, you can't, they do a lot more than that. Like when we work with Life University or Parker College, they do a lot more than just BrainTap. But BrainTap's one of the ways that can keep things going and accelerate those results.
Do universities use BrainTap for education, helping people take testing skills, improving their testing or anything like that?
Well, we're working with several universities now, but the biggest one that I work with for that is Quantum University out of Hawaii. Every student that joins Quantum University gets a series which we call the Quantum Super Learning Advantage, and I put a lot of their courses to BrainTap, so they can actually listen to their BrainTap, get their brain working, and have it function. I was just told this morning, actually, by Dr. Vivek, who's the head of physiology at Gautama Buddha University, which we've done studies with them before. They've just started 2 massive studies with BrainTap and other meditation programs. So I'm really excited to find out what happened with that, because we just got back from there. We had some really great findings. We showed in school, his daughter actually did a research project that she did it with just her high school, and she won 4th place even among medical doctors in research at this event I was at, and it was about BrainTap. She said the power of theta in learning, and she showed that she increased significantly our learning capacity with even just 1 session of BrainTap. The cognition in the brain improved enough that she could support it with her study. And now the school is using it now on a school-wide basis. I posted that on social media. If they go to the BrainTap site, they'll see the study there. Varuna Sharma did the study.
Okay, great. So back up a little bit, a couple more questions. Can we, back to the ATP, can we measure our ATP? Is there a test you can go to the doctor and get taken, or?
I think there is.
Do you know of any
we
tests?
measure energy across the body. We actually have a heart rate variability, or data pulse analysis, they call it. And through resistance in the body, we can send a low level current through your cartilage, and it will tell us how much energy you have flowing through the system. And then it feeds that back to us. So we can measure that through our, what we call data pulse analysis system. There's probably other ways to do it too, but you'll find that people who have a lot of inflammation, you can't have energy and the destruction of inflammation at the same time. So once you put out the fire of inflammation, your body will naturally bring up your ATP production.
Okay.
That's why
So,
water, when they say drink 8 to 10 glasses of water a day, or half your body's weight in ounces of water, water has the molecule of hydrogen in it. So you can either drink hydrogen water and really accelerate this process, or you can drink the water and let your body do the processing, because your body's going to break the water apart and create that hydrogen response, that covalent bond. And that's part of what keeps the body making this ATP.
okay, so you get a good idea. So can the people watching, if they want to go get the brain testing done and check out all their ATPs and all the things you talked about, can they go to your website, put their zip code in, and find a doctor in their area?
They can, hopefully it's
Or
working.
can you
by the
give us
time
your
we
email?
tell them about that. We do have, if not, they can email support@braintap.com. We have 2,300 offices in America
Okay,
using BrainTap. About half
okay,
of them have instruments where they can actually record brain activity. Some have different systems, like Dr. Bagnell has all the latest equipment and tools. Dr. Miller
right.
has one called the New Mind. There are people that have different neurofeedback devices like NeuroInfinity. Some people have the data pulse analysis, so we can set them up and get them somewhere.
Dr. Lankering, Dr. Court, tons of them. But everybody watching, if you could email support@BrainTap, just like it sounds, .com. They will be able
Just
to
ask for
direct you
a
to.
location. Just ask for a location near them, and they'll email them back the location.
Okay, so now back up a little more on your sessions. The headsets, you listen to the morning, noon, or night. You listen to the different modules. If you're using it, does it give you the benefit of sleeping? And is a certain amount of minutes using BrainTap equal to a longer amount of sleeping?
Well, we have 10-minute sessions that are designed to wake up the brain. We call it digital coffee. So people will feel like they just took a short nap and got re-energized. Usually, most people know about the power of napping, but they don't have 3 to 4 hours to take a nap. So most people will tell us it's the equivalency of a 3 or 4 hour nap. If you do it in the middle of the day, we now know that a 20-minute session helps you to reclaim about 80% of the energy you had in the morning. So if you can do it at around 2 to 3, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the reason that people have this desire for coffee or whatever is because our core temperature in our body goes down about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it's basically telling us it's time to shut down do a little reboot, do a little meditation, relax, take a poke siesta, whatever. But people don't do that. They just power through it. They go get some caffeine or something like that. But if you can do a reboot, and then of course, if we have the sessions in the evening, we actually have Delta training for the evening, which basically drops your brain off into the deeper states. Most of our people listen at night, even to sessions that aren't sleep sessions, because the brain simply goes through a cycle of sleep. At night, we should go through 3 cycles like that. So each of our sessions has 3 to 4 cycles in it. So we're again biohacking. We're kind of tricking the brain, as it were, to think you've had it. Now, it doesn't replace sleep. You still need sleep, but what will happen is people will sleep deeper, get more sleep out of 6 hours than most other people get out of 8 hours.
Right. So, and just for the people watching, these sessions you're talking about, and you could explain it better than me, that they're doctors or specialists of many kinds talking to people to help them. You explain it better than me. Go ahead.
Right. What we've done is they're all learning modules. So for instance, let's say that we're going to help somebody with stress. We're going to teach them techniques that they can use when they're not on the BrainTap. So even though they're doing it, so think of it like practice. If you're an athlete, you're going to practice so that when you're in the game, you perform better. So think of BrainTap as practice so you can perform better in the game of life. And of course, you're going to get rid of the stress. You're going to start to anticipate and focus on how you want to act, behave, and respond to situations rather than just become reactionary. Because living a reactionary life is very stressful. We want to interact and dance with life, not have this constant barrage of negative responses.
Mm-hmm. So that's great. So I just want to make sure they're a little clear. And I want to give a testimony. I've used BrainTap some. I do have the headset, but before I had the headset, I just used it from my cell phone with earphones. Mm-hmm. How does that? It's not as beneficial, I'm sure, but I gotta tell you, for the people who don't have a headset, it works.
Right. Well, I think you could let people try it. If you want to put into the messages a link, we can gift them all 15 days free. Just put it in a link below and let them try it for themselves. Because what we did is we said some people are very auditory, so they can listen and they can get a really good response. But for people
Thank you. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'll put the link down below or up above, and anybody watching this will go to whatever the link is, and you can try it for 15 days. I think seems like they get the gist of it. And it's no credit card or anything, right, doctor?
Right, no credit card. And they can also get a copy of that book we were talking about, The Thrive in Overdrive, for free. It's a PDF. They can save it to their Kindle reader, or they can save it to their iBooks. They can read it on their phone or their device, and they can learn all about the technology, and there's no cost. And you get to keep the book once it's done. So.
Great, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. So let me just finish up on my testimony, because one of my most favorite one was hydration. So I listened to this module for about, I think it was 20 minutes, because I don't drink enough water. And I did this before I went to bed. I'll be darned, that very same night, I woke up 5 times thirsty as could be. Had to run in the kitchen, because I don't keep a bottle on my nightstand, a bottle of water. Had to run in there. So it was the power of your program put into my mind. You're going to be thirsty tonight, and it worked.
Right. What it is your brain knows what you need. So as long as it's something you need, your brain will follow through. And so with that long-term thinking we're talking about, is you put little triggers into your life that said, hey, when I feel this way from now on, I'm going to have water instead of maybe something else. Or some people will eat when they're thirsty. This has been confused because when we're babies, of course, we don't tell mom or dad, hey, I'm thirsty, I don't need food. Mom and dad gets to choose. So the signaling system gets kind of misrepresented. So, but most people are thirsty. There's actually a really good book called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And the listeners would be shocked to know all of the different symptoms from dehydration. So water is probably the key to improving your life. Sleep is number 1, probably, then water, I would say.
Then food, third, huh? So here's another thing that happened to me. I was listening to one of your programs. At this time, I had the headsets on for many a nights to go to sleep, relax, because you go to sleep and you're all tense, like you said. So sure enough, I could, and it was one that you did. I could hear your voice. Everything went perfect. I fell right to sleep, right? Did it for 3 nights in a row. Well, then I had to go on a trip. And both nights I was gone in the hotel, I could hear your voice. I could hear your voice telling me what to do, but I didn't have the earphones in.
Right. So you're learning.
Why?
That's the part of it, is you're learning to do it for yourself. The whole key is for you to learn to do this. The technology is just there to assist you in learning quickly, so you don't have to go through all the lessons. You can do it very rapidly and learn how to relax the body.
Yeah. I knew I had to ask you that, because I thought that was kind of strange. I'm laying there thinking Dr. Porter's telling me what to do to relax.
Well,
so anyway, well, we're excited. Thank you for that gift. Hopefully everybody watching will go to the link below or above and take advantage of Dr. Porter's gift of a book that he's giving you all. That's a big deal. Thank you. And then also go ahead and no credit card, just try the different modules. They'll have access to all of them.
They'll have access to, yeah, they should have access. There's a power user, which is like, there's over 1,000 sessions once you get into that.
Wow.
So there's some that are just music only. So if they don't want to listen to anybody's voice, they just want to try the light, sound, and vibration part of it without instruction. That's also there.
Right. So if you want to get the headphones, you're going to have to go to BrainTap or go to that link. I'm sure there's somewhere, but you can use it with the light and sound, but you can use it with just earphones.
Right.
From anywhere.
Once they sign up for that free time, they'll be given a link if they choose to purchase the headset. They can do it there, but they don't have to. It's just, let's try it out, see what you think, and then we can take the next step.
Right. Our World Wellness is for just education only. So we're not selling. It's just Dr. Porter's trying to explain how it works, and me as well. So we also have an interview with you about weight loss here in a couple weeks. So hopefully some of us have done that and tried the program by then, and maybe they can even make some comments to me, and we'll let you know how it's going.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to giving you some tips on that. It'll be the new year, so people will be ready for it.
Yes. Anything else you'd like to talk about, or you've done an amazing job?
I think just know that there are technologies out there that can help you through what technology is causing. We have a lot of stress over our technology. So let's use the right technology to tune the brain and get your body back healthy so you can enjoy your life, especially now through the holidays. I mean, a lot of people need the stress reduction just to get through the holidays. So go there. It's a gift, no credit card necessary. Use it give yourself the 15-day challenge, see how you feel. Right. It gives me the chills when you say these things, because I know you are making a difference in everybody who wants to try this life. And that's exciting to me. And I'm grateful for you doing that for everybody. Yeah. Thank you so much. Share this podcast and the link. Our goal is to get 1 billion brains healthy and functioning in the right direction so we can change the world. So let's all do it together. Okay, great. We will absolutely do that. Thank you, Dr. Porter, and have a Merry Christmas. You too. Thank you. And we'll be talking to you soon. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.